Hear me? Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Okay then. Okay. Good morning, everybody. We've come. What I've decided to learn with you today is the last part of Sefer Shmuel, the beginning of Sefer Shmuel Bet, after the tragic death of Shaul and Yehonatan at the battle on Har Gilboa. And it's a long story, and I don't want to go into it because Emir Hashem, for the rest of the year, I want to carry on with David HaMelech being a king. But what I want to learn with you today is the Kinah, the eulogy of David HaMelech on Shaul and Yehonatan. It's a very, very important piece in the Tanakh, and it gives us insights into the connection which David HaMelech had with Shaul and Yehonatan. Okay, it was used by people who didn't believe in the authenticity or the truth of the Torah, the Tanakh, in a not a very nice way. But let's learn it together. There's an English translation together with it, and it's written the following. Vayikonen David et hakina azot al Shaul va'al Yehonatan beno. And David intoned this eulogy over Shaul and his son Yehonatan. Vayomer, and he said, Lelamed b'nei Yehuda kashet. He's teaching it in order to teach the children of Yehuda how to use a bow and arrow. And it's written, and what I'm telling you is recorded in Ektuva al Sefer Hayashar. Hatzvi Yisrael al bamotecha halal. Your glory of Israel lies slain on the heights. Ech naflu giborim. Al tagidu begat. Don't speak about it in Gat, in the cities of the Philistines. Al vasru b'chutzot Ashkelon. And don't speak about it in the streets of Ashkelon. Pentismachna b'not Plishtim, lest the daughters of the Philistines rejoice. Pel ta'alozna b'not Arilim. Harei b'Gilboa, al tal. On the mountains of Gilboa, let there no be dew or rain. Ustei trumot, or bountiful fields. Kisham, there nig'al magen giborim, because there the great shields of the mighty ones stay mgualim, filled with blood. Magen Shaul b'li Mashiach b'shamin. Midam chalalim, from the blood of the slain ones. Michelev giborim, the fat of the warriors. Keshet Yehonatan lo nasogachor, the bow of Yehonatan never turned back. The cherev Shaul, and the sword of Shaul lo tashuv reikam. Shaul v'Yehonatan הנאהבים והנעימים בחייהם ובמותם לא נפרדו. They never were separated. מנשרים קלו, מעיירות גברו. They were stronger than eagles. They were stronger than lions. Sorry about the translation, it's not parallel. Bnot Israel, daughters of Israel. Al Shaul b'chena. Please cry over Shaul. Amal bishchem shani, who clothed you with crimson and fine begadim, nice clothes. Adanim hamalet adei zahav al levushechem. Ech naflu giborim betoch hamilchama. Yehonatan al bomotecha chalal. How Yehonatan fell on the wall. Tsar li alecha achi Yehonatan. Na'amta li mo'od nifleta avatcha li me'avat nashim. Ech naflu giborim yovdu klei milchama. That is the eulogy of David on Yehonatan and Shaul. Okay, it is perhaps one of the most moving, in actual fact, one of the most moving eulogies which we say every single Shabbat. If we go back into it, let us just go right to the bottom, of the document. Right at the bottom, we will see that this is something which we say on Shabbat. Abba Rachamim, Shochen Bamromim, Barachamav Atzumim, we've got in line number 95, HaChasidim VaYesharim VaTmimim, Kilot HaKodesh Shemasu al Nafsham, Kedushat Hashem, הנאהבים והנעימים בחייהם מותם לא נפרדו, מן השערים קלו, מהערות גברו, לעשות רצון קונם בחפץ צורם. So here, after the first Crusades, this became a standard tefillah on Shabbos. The majority of it, or the praises which we know, are taken from the Kinah, the eulogy of David. So what does David actually say here? Now let's look at it, because this is perhaps the most important idea which we're going to speak about. Let's go back to the words, first of all. The words themselves speak everything. Written more or less 3 times, the word ech. Take note in Pasuk Yutet, Hatzvi Yisrael al bamotecha halal, ech naflu giborim. How did it happen? The last 2 sentences also, ech naflu giborim, milchama, ech naflu giborim. 3 times the terminology ech naflu giborim falls. David HaMelech feels what it means to have lost giborim. Now, what's quite amazing in this is if we look at, and that's why the Malbim straight away asks, Kinah zot, shalosh pa'amim ech naflu giborim. 3 times mentioned. Now, what this teaches us is the following. The Ralbag says an amazing insight. He summarizes the whole of the end of Shmuel. And what I want to read with you is from line number 112. What does the Ralbag say? The Ralbag says the following. He says, if we look in the history of David HaMelech, and we've learned about it, how Shaul tries to kill David. He gets up, and we learn it, we read it often in the Haftarah of Machal Chodesh. He gets hold of a spear and throws it, and tries to throw it at David. He's full of anger. And what does he say, the Ralbag? He says the following. HaChamishim v'shalosh, line number 112. הוא להודיע שאין ראוי לאדם שישמח בנפול אויביו. A person should never be happy when his enemy. אבל ראוי שיהיה חרד, he should tremble בנפילת שר וגדול. He should tremble when a king falls. ויזכרו, כי כבר ייתכן שיקרה לו, it can also happen to him. ולזה תמצא שקרא דוד את בגדיו. He tears his clothes, ויספוד, and he eulogizes, ויבכה, and he cries, וצם עד הערב על שאול תחילה, להיותו היותר נכבד, ואחר זה על יהונתן, ואחרי עם השם. He cries about Shaul, and he cries about Yehonatan, and he cries about the whole of Am Yisrael. Vayikonen al Shaul v'al Yehonatan Kinah nifla'ah. And he eulogizes about this special person, Shaul, Mashiach Hashem. David HaMelech here shows leadership. His leadership is he knows that there's the tribe of Binyamin, there's the tribe of Yehudah. He has to now, in actual fact, unite all the Jewish people. And he does it in a way which is unbelievable. Giborim. He calls them Giborim. He calls them people who fought against everything and the love of a father to a son. And David HaMelech feels that. And David HaMelech wants to teach us the most important thing. Ein ra'ui la'adam sheyismach binfol oivav. Even when you have somebody who perhaps tried to fight against you and everything, David HaMelech stands up and decides that this is the way he's going to carry on. He's going to show what it is that Am Yisrael have lost Mashiach Hashem, the anointed one of Hashem. Now, how does he do it? What is he going to do? How does he actually start off? And here we come to a fascinating insight of Reb Nachman of Breslav. What does he call it? Vayikonen David et Kinah hazot al Shaul v'al Yehonatan beno. Kinah, or we call on Tisha B'Av Kinot. Says Reb Nachman of Breslav. That the same words, the same letters of the word Kinot, azai hi nishpelet v'nichfefet, v'naseh mizeh b'chinat Kinot, shehu otiyot tikun. A Kinah is also in order to correct. Kinot, take note, Kuf, Yud, Nun, Vav, Tav, are the same words as Tikkun. A brilliant, brilliant insight. How will a eulogy tell us to correct our ways? What is the objective of Eicha? What are the objectives of Kinot? Kinot are not only to get into desperation. Kinot are not only there to make to discourage a person. They are there also to correct your ways. Try to correct, to try to learn. And that's why the word Avel, mourning, is the same word as Aval. You're in Avelut, Aval. Even though a person is mourning, but. What do you mean, but? But means there's a way ahead. Avelut has to create the way ahead. Because the Torah doesn't believe in falling down into the trap of mourning. It doesn't believe falling into the trap of desperation. It doesn't believe in the way of falling down, 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 and you can never get up again. That's why Kinot, letters Tikkun, and Avelut, the word Aval. That's what Reb Nachman of Breslav teaches us. Now, how does David HaMelech do this? Let's go back to the first sentence. Vayikonen David את הקנאה הזאת על שאול ועל יונתן בנו. ויאמר, and he said, ללמד בני יהודה קשת. I'm going to teach you how to use the arrow. הנה כתובה, because this is what's written, על ספר הישר. Let's learn the Radak on this sentence. Says the Radak the following. ויש לפרש, line number 19, כי זה אינו מן הקנאה. This is not part of the eulogy, because the beginning of the eulogy, תחינת, קנאה is הצבי ישראל. כי איך היה זוכר בקנאת שאול ויונתן בני יהודה שכנגד מלכותו. אבל פירושו ויאמר, ללמד בני יהודה קשת. קודם שהחל לקונן עליהם, אמר לאנשיו, אל תתייאשו מן הטובה. Don't give up hope. From ואל ירח לבבכם. And don't let your heart become weakened. במות שאול ויונתן. כי קשת המלחמה ביד יהודה, ולהם היא הגבורה. Don't let the death of Shaul and Yehonatan put you in depression. No. What have you got to do? You've got to build yourself up and use the same. 1 minute, sorry, 1 minute. I've just got to go down to the bottom. 1 minute, sorry. Over here. And you have to begin to correct yourself. David HaMelech is telling Am Yisrael, if this battle is going to make you in depression, and this battle is going to make you give up hope, as Jews, we do not stand a chance. No way. No way. And therefore, what does he say? I'm going to give a eulogy, but the first thing is to teach Am Yisrael how to reuse the arrow. Before I even begin to speak about who they were and their greatness, I want to tell you, you cannot, the Jewish people can never, ever let themselves go down and get into depression and give up hope. We have to carry on fighting. That's the first sentence of the Kinah. An amazing, and that's what Reb Nachman bar Breslov says. The Kinah, Kinot, are the tikkun. First, let's correct ourselves. First, let's see how can we build ourselves. Then let's see what we've lost. Not the other way around. If we begin to just sink into a eulogy, then what do we gain from it? No, we have to change around the format. First, let's see how we build ourselves up. And then let's see what we've lost. That's what David HaMelech teaches us. And he carries it on and he tells us, where's all this written? This is written in a book called Hine Ktuva al Sefer HaYashar. Sefer HaYashar is a very special book, and we learned about it in Sefer Yoshua. The famous story of the battle of Yoshua in Ai. Yoshua prays to HaKadosh Baruch Hu and he said, I want to finish off the battle. And what happens? He says, Shemesh beGivon Dom, the sun in Givon should stop. Says Yoshua, Vayidom HaShemesh, and the sun stopped. V'yareach Amad, and the moon stopped. Ad Yikom Goyoivav, until we will avenge our enemies. Haloi Ktuva al Sefer HaYashar. This is also written in Sefer HaYashar. Vayamod HaShemesh b'chatzi ad shamayim v'lo atzlavo kiyom tamim. And the sun stopped and didn't move. Says the Radak. V'nei Ktuva b'Sefer HaYashar, v'hu Sefer HaTorah, shekatav ba yadcha b'oref oivecha. Your hands should be in the neck of your enemies. Uktiv kara shachav kari. V'chein bebirchat Moshe Rabbeinu gam ken yadav rav lo ve'eze metzarav tiyeh. Ubi yadam, and in their hands. Yikan'u plishtim, mora'inu, echniam David, etc., etc. What's written in the Torah? What's written in the Torah is to never, ever give up. Continue going forward. The Jewish people have to always look to the future. And if we don't, then we fall. That is the prophecy of Sefer HaYashar, the book of integrity. A person who's got integrity knows there's a plan. A person who's got integrity knows that there is truth. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu and David HaMelech is telling us that what? That the most important thing is, when there's a loss, the first thing is, you go forward. Lelamed Bnei Yehuda Kashet, because that's what's written al Sefer HaYashar. That is number one. That's how David introduces his Kinah. Not a eulogy, but a plan for the future. Stage number one. Has anybody got any questions? Any ha'arot? Yes.
I think that's a magnificent interpretation.
Thank you. Thank you. It's not mine. It's not mine. Okay.
I don't care who it is. It's a tremendous interpretation. It speaks to the present time.
It does, 100%. Okay, it's something, let me tell you something. Once, after Yitzhak Rabin, Zichrono Livracha, was murdered, I spoke about this. How the first thing is that even though Yitzhak Rabin was murdered, we have to go forward.
Exactly. Exactly. Is there a Sefer HaYashar? Do we have it? Has ever been found?
No, this is it's called the Torah. Sefer HaYashar is called the Torah.
Is it? I thought.
Yeah. Sefer HaYashar is the Torah.
I double my compliment.
Sorry?
I double my compliment.
Right. Sefer HaYashar is the Sefer Torah. Right. Let's carry on. Now let's go to the eulogy itself. Okay. Sorry, 1 minute. Now, what's very interesting is that David HaMelech, let's go back to the terminology which is used here. The difference going through between the different types of weapons. Okay, in Pasuk Yud Chet it's written, "Vayomer lelamed bnei Yehuda kashet." Okay, the bow and arrow. Later on it's written, "Sham nig'al magen giborim," magen, shield. Then later on it's written again, "Midam chalalim michelev giborim kashet Yehonatan lo nasa gachor." Cherev Shaul, Yehonatan has a kashet. Shaul has a sword. Okay? And later on, okay, Yovdu klei milchama. The last sentence. Klei milchama. What are the klei milchama which exist in this Kinah? The kashet and the cherev, the bow and arrow and the sword. Now, we know, and this is one of the big interpretations which take place in Sefer Bereshit. Because David HaMelech, Yaakov Avinu, says in Sefer Bereshit the following sentence. He says in Parshat Vayechi, says the following. 1 minute. Sorry. B'charbi, I went around Here, V'ani natati lecha shchem echad, I'm giving you one fingerhead, he says to Menashe and Ephraim. Shchem echad alachecha, asher lakachti miyad ha'emori, which I've taken from the hands of the Emori, b'charbi uvekashti, a cherev and a keshet. Chazal explain on this. Cherev, look in the Netziv, Moromei Sadeh, it's the Perush of the Netziv, but it's a Perush which goes through the whole of the Torah. But he says the following. Charbi, Chazal explain, the Cherev is a tefillah. Keshet ze bakasha. Masechet brachot, ita lishmoa el harina vel tefillah. Rina zu tefillah, tefillah zu bakasha. So we have two types of tefillot. One which is called a tefillah, which is a cherev, and one which is a keshet, a bakasha. Says the Netziv in line number 49, after the 5 dots. V'hainu kecherev, shemo'il lemi she'omed bekarov v'ro'ehu. A sword is only good if there's somebody near you. You can defend yourself with a sword when somebody can attack you. Aval lemi she'omed merachok, but somebody who stands is far away. V'rotze la'aziko eino mo'il. A sword doesn't help. The sword only helps you to defend yourself in the place where you stand. Umikol sheken, and even more so, she'eino mo'il acherev la'arog acher merachok. The sword is never helpful when there's somebody who's trying to attack you from far. A sword is only as far as your hand reaches. Somebody who's trying to attack you from 30 meters, the sword will never help you. A keshet, a bow and arrow, will help you. So you have two types of weapons. You have a cherev, which guards your direct and close environment, and a bow and arrow, which helps you to attack from afar. And that's what he says. He says, a cherev, a tefillah, is what you need now. Bakasha is what you need in the future. So he says the following. ומכל שכן שאינו מועיל החרב להרוג אחד מרחוק, אבל תפילה שהיא בקשה מועיל לכל דבר. Tefillah, which is in a bakasha, is what? Helps you for everything. וכמו קשת, like a bow and arrow, שמועיל למרחוק. והיינו דכאמר דוד במיתתו של שאול, ללמד בני יהודה קשת. I want us to learn from what happened. We cannot allow the Philistines to come near us. We have to know how to attack from a distance. Missiles, airplanes, not from a pistol. הלא היא כתובה על ספר הישר. ורוצה לומר, לא כמו שאול, שתורתו היה מגן עליו, שנמשלה לחרב פיפיות כידוע. It wasn't just the Torah of Shaul, which what? Was just around him. We need to spread our wings. אבל אנו צריכים, says the Netziv, אנו צריכים לתפילה שנמשלה לקשת. וכדכתיב בספר הישר שמע השם כל יהודה, שהיא צעקה בעת צרה. Shaul only lived with a cherev. Yehonatan lived with a keshet. We have got to learn from Yehonatan. We have got to know how to spread our wings, how to go far, how to look in the future, how to look in the distance. And David HaMelech says that was our problem. Shaul lived for the present. David lives for the future. David Melech Yisrael Chai V'Kayom. The life of David HaMelech still exists. He's always there. Because if there was one person who pushed the Jewish people forward, that is David. Look at his name. His name is backwards, forwards. Daled, Vav, Daled. A circle. It always goes round. It always goes round. And what was his father's name? Yishai. Yud, Shin, Yud. David ben Yishai. From the beginning to the end, they are the same. And David HaMelech received this message from his father. And he says to the Jewish people, we can only look forward. We've got to be like a keshet, to push ourselves forward the whole time, to look into the distance, to look into the future. And that's what David says. And that's why Shaul, he realizes that he was a magen, he was a shield. He was a what? He had a sword, but he could never go further ahead. That's the first message of David. Does anybody want to say anything? Don't be shy, guys. Let's go ahead. Next. Carry on. What does he say? Now let's go to the praises of who they were. Hatzvi Yisrael al bamotecha halal. Ech naflu giborim. The tzvi of Yisrael, the glory of Am Yisrael. They are now al bamotecha. They lie slain on your high hills. The word tzvi, in actual fact, comes in Sefer Yeshayahu. And it says the following. Yeshayahu says, Vayomahu, on that day, Yeh Hashem tzvakot le'ateret tzvi. It will be a crown of glory. Uletzfirat tifara l'shar amo. So who's he describing now? Says the Abrabanel. Efshar lefaresh hatzvi Yisrael באופן רביעי על שאול ויונתן, שהיו יופי ישראל. They were the beauty of Am Yisrael and their tzivionam and their essence, how people should live. ועליהם אמר לאנשיו בני יהודה, שילמדו קשת וקינה. Let's learn from them. ואמרו, איך נפלו גיבורים? אל תגידו ואל תבשרו. בגת ואשקלון, איך נפלו הגיבורים הללו? Don't start telling how these people fell. He says the following. He says, let's look at these two people, the father and the son. The respect that the father had for the son and the son had for the father. ואחשוב ששיבח את שאול ויונתן בדבר אחר, והוא מהיותם במלחמה, תמיד מדובקים ומחוברים. The father and the son were in the battle together. ואם מהיותם בתוך עם רב, ודולגים מפה אל פה, ולוחמים מכאן ומכאן כפי צורך השעה, על כל זה תמיד הלכו מחוברים. Even though they went and they tried to encourage their soldiers to fight, they were always together. וזהו במותם לא נפרדו. They were what? In their death, they never get separated. They were like eagles. מן השערים קלו. ללכת ממקום למקום. They went from place to place in the battle, trying to encourage their soldiers. ומהעיירות גברו. And they were like lions in the war. ולהו בלי ספק דבר גדול מאוד. כי במלחמה חזקה מבולבלת לא יראה. In a battle, often people don't see each other. But Shaul and Yehonatan were directing their soldiers the whole time, and they had the ability to join up with one another. David HaMelech is coming to tell us how soldiers should be together. Okay? The leaders are always in the front. In the olden days, you always used to see the kings overlooking the soldiers, how they fight. Shaul and David were not like that. They went into the battle leaders. They were the leaders, and they were the ones who were encouraging their soldiers. And that's why min hasharim kalu ma'arot gaveru. But what even greater than that is the following. Who were they? Klei milchama, Shaul v'Yehonatan. Hayu klei zayin shel Yisrael. Now, what's amazing is the following. David HaMelech plays on words here. Hatzvi Yisrael, the beauty, the glory of Israel. Al bamotecha halal. On the high hills, they were slain. What does David HaMelech say? This is the greatest punishment the Jewish people could ever have. Why is that? Let's go down the way Moshe Rabbeinu ends off his last words in the Torah. It says the following. Ashrecha Yisrael. Fortunately, are you Am Yisrael? Mika mocha, who is like you. Now, this is the last sentence of Moshe Rabbeinu, because the next sentence is in Perek Lamed Daled, Vayamot Moshe. So the last sentence which Moshe Rabbeinu ever said to the Jewish people was the following: Ashrecha Yisrael. Fortunate you, Am Yisrael. Mika mocha, who is like you. Am Noshab Hashem. O people whose salvation is through Hashem. Magen Ezrecha. Hashem is like the shield who helps you. Va'asher cherev gavatecha. And who is your majestic sword? V'kachashu oivecha lecha. Your enemies will lie to you. Your enemies will lie down. And what will happen? Va'ata. And you, al bamotecha tidroch. You will tread on their heights. The last words of Moshe Rabbeinu are where? You are on the top. You will overcome your, what's it called? Your enemies on their heights. And what happens in this war? Al bamotecha halal. On their heights, you fell. That is the greatest chilul Hashem. David HaMelech is telling the Jewish people, look what a chilul Hashem has taken place. On Har Gilboa, the mountain, on a high place, which HaKadosh Baruch Hu, which Moshe Rabbeinu is telling us, you will overcome everybody. Your king and your crown prince have fallen there. That is the greatest chilul Hashem. Right. That is the first sentence. Let's go back to the beginning. After he gives the tikkun, after he says to them, lelamed biyuda keshet, hinei ktuva al sefer yashar. Correct, that's the tikkun. But what's happened? Hatzvi Yisrael, the glory of Am Yisrael. Shaul and Yehonatan, the Mashiach Hashem, where are they? Al bamotecha. What Moshe Rabbeinu promised us. The al bamotecha tidroch, al bamotecha halal. That is a chilul Hashem. Ech naflu giborim. That is what we see when we learn Torah, when we learn Nevi'im, common words, common statements. And we always have to learn around compare the codes of Tanakh and the codes of Torah, how everything works in together. And then David HaMelech says, don't tell this in Gat Al Tavasrenu. Okay, now I just want to jump ahead. And he says the following. It says, 1 minute, Harold, I just want to carry on one more statement, which is very, very important before you ask questions. It says, Minasharim kalu umayarot gaveru. Now, Abravanel explained it, that what? They were like eagles in the battle. And they were like lions. But Rashi doesn't say that. Rashi says, Minasharim kalu umayarat gaveru. Rashi says, La'asot ritzon bor'am. David and Yehonatan were not only eagles in the battle, they were not only arayot gaveru, they were people who were in actual fact, their whole life was la'asot ritzon bor'am, to do the will of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. This, in actual fact, was the basis of Avarachamim. The person who wrote Avarachamim took Rashi's interpretation. Because what does he say? Avarachamim shochen meromim. Brachamav atzumim hu yifkod ברחמים החסידים והישרים והתמימים. קהילות הקודש שמסרו נפשם על קדושת השם. This was written after the First Crusades in 1056. Gzerot tatnu. Haneavim v'aniimim. Who was Haneavim v'aniimim? The source of this was Shaul and David. Uvemotam lo nifradu. Now, minasharim kalu, ma'arot gaveru. What's written? La'asot ritzon konam v'chefetz suram. An exact copy of Rashi. These people who were like eagles and were like lions, what did they do in order to do ritzon konam, the will of their owner, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the chefetz, and the desire of Tsuram, the way he made it. The person who wrote Avarachamim, and we're not sure who wrote it, he took this explanation from Rashi. Because what does Rashi say? Min sharim kalu mayot gaveru la'asot ritzon boram. Shaul and Yehonatan were exemplary people who their whole life, their objective was to worship HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And Abravanel and Rashi are feeling the two sides. The physical dimension, the physical perspective of Shaul and David, of Shaul and Yehonatan, and the spiritual perspective. Every word, we can give a whole share on the whole thing. Harold, what do you want to say?
The comparison you made with regard to the statement of Moshe Rabbeinu on that God, on the height, and the statement of David HaMelech saying that they fell. So, I mean, this is a criticism by David HaMelech?
No, it's the opposite. It's the Chilul Hashem which has taken place. It's our fault. It's our fault.
Well,
we didn't have the zchut. Am Yisrael didn't have the zchut that Shaul and Yehonatan will trample on them. And we had, instead of a Kiddush Hashem, we had a Chilul Hashem.
So that's what I'm saying. He's being critical
of Am Yisrael.
Of Am Yisrael.
Of the Jewish people. Pardon?
Okay, so not on Shaul and Yehonatan.
No, not on Shaul and Yehonatan. No. He says, how is it possible that we, the Jewish people, have gone down to such low depths that where HaKadosh Baruch Hu says the king and his army will stand on the mountain as the victors, we became the Chalalim. How did we do it? How did we fall? How did we deserve such a thing? That's what he's saying.
Okay.
That is the depth of the Kinah, the eulogy. He wants to say, how did we deserve and how did we fall to such heights that our king was killed on a place where Moshe Rabbeinu promised us that we will trample the enemies. That is what the Kinah speaks about. The love and the connection between father and son. And David HaMelech says, what have I lost? What have we lost? Who have we lost? The tzvi, the glory of Am Yisrael.
Who is the father and the son?
Shaul and Yehonatan. Yehonatan was the son of Shaul.
Yeah, but he was closer to David HaMelech.
Sorry?
Yehonatan was closer to David HaMelech than he was to his father.
True, but David HaMelech sees how they went into the battle together and they tried to save one another.
That
And they tried to,
yeah, I understand. I understood that, but basically,
but David HaMelech wants to say that is the true way that a father and son should relate to each other. He's correct. That means David HaMelech is speaking not from a personal perspective.
because
Later on he speaks.
David and HaMelech and Shaul, David had respected Shaul, but he was still very wary of him because Shaul wanted to kill him.
Exactly, and that's what when he speaks about what's happened now is that is the greatness of David HaMelech.
Yes,
That is his greatness.
but he's not.
That's
what I'm trying to say is that's not father and son.
No. But he wants to show Am Yisrael how these two went into battle together and they fought and everything like that, and they cared about each other. That's what he's trying to say.
Because basically, the famous story and the teaching is the friendship of Yehonatan.
Correct. But then later on he speaks about that. That's what I mean. This would have been a 3-hour share.
May I make a small suggestion to you? You
Yes,
have
what's the small?
the ability to control the colors. Very often in the shiurim, psukim, they jump around. If you use the color of where you are, it would be very helpful.
That's why I use numbers. Okay. Let me just go to the last explanation of the Radah. It says the Ralbag. We'll try to do that in the future. It says the following. It says the Ralbag. The Ralbag gives another insight into this. He says the following. ה-52, line number 104. להודיע איך הפליג השם. How HaKadosh Baruch Hu plans everything out. אשר לא נתקלו עלילות. Everything is planned out. להמציא סיבות שיגיעו דוד אל שתהיה לו המלוכה בקלות. How David HaMelech becomes the king. כמו שגזרה חוכמתו ורצונו. כי אם היה נהרג שאול לבדו, if Shaul had been killed by himself, הנה לחוזק אהבת דוד אל יונתן, לא היה יכול להסכים בעצמו לעשוק הממלכה ממנו. If Yonatan would have been saved, David HaMelech would never ever have taken the king, the zchut of Yonatan to be the king. He wouldn't have. He would have pushed Yonatan to become the king after Shaul. Uleze met Yonatan imo. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu plans that Yonatan will die at the same time as his father. וכבר נפלו גם כן עמו קצת ישראל, להראות להם איזו הבדל יש בין דוד לשאול. כי שאול, עם היות מלך, נפל הוא ועמו ביד פלישתים, ודוד ניצח באמצעי מעט עם רב. כי זה מה שישע ישראל אל שיתנו לדוד המלוכה. The Ralbag puts it in a godly perspective. What would have happened if Yehonatan would have been saved? David would never have been a king. He would never have pushed Yehonatan away. Because David HaMelech was that type of person. He didn't want to become the king. The whole time he praised Shaul, Mashiach Hashem, and he loved Yehonatan. And because of that, that's why David HaMelech is called David the Beloved. David HaMelech had never aspirations. And therefore, HaKadosh Baruch Hu has to plan things in a different way, unfortunately. Shaul, Yehonatan has to die with Shaul, unfortunately. And a lot of the people have to die at the battle. And Am Yisrael, under David HaMelech's rule, overcome the Plishtim in a more easier way. And that is HaKadosh Baruch Hu's plan. We often don't see it, but the Ralbag puts it in. And then he says the last one, ה-54, להודיע שראוי לאדם שילמד דעת ממה שיכשיל זולתו. ולזה תמצא, כי מפני שראה דוד שנפל שאול ובניו על ידי המורים, because Shaul was killed by a bow and arrow, we have to learn how to use a bow and arrow. We have to become like Robin Hoods. We have to become like all these people who know how to use it. And David HaMelech is, says the Ralbag, trying to teach the tikkun of the failing of the battle of Shaul and Yehonatan, and to teach us new ways of fighting. Now, we could have spent about 4 hours going into the Kinah of David in all the praises and all the terminology which he uses, but I think he says right at the end, Tsar li alecha, achi Yehonatan, na'amta li me'od, you made my life so dear, nifleta avatcha, your life was wonderful to me, Yehonatan avat nachim, because we realized who we were. Now, obviously, this was taken away, that David and what's he called? And Yehonatan, chas v'chalila, a million times were other types of people, which I don't want to mention. But he ends off by saying, Ech naflu giborim. How did these people fall? And we have to be the tikkun of the kinot of David. I'm sorry, I've got to finish off now because I had a meeting at quarter to. I'm an hour behind you now in South Africa. Okay, I wish you all Chag Kasher v'Sameach. I wish you all a Chag Kasher v'Sameach. And well,
Phil, mute yourself. Phil, mute.
Hello? Hello?
Chag Kasher v'Sameach, everybody.
Okay, bye-bye.
Okay, bye.
Hello?
Victoria. Okay,
They're going to come in. Oh, sure, I'll open the door.
Victoria. Bye-bye. No, it's 500,000. It's correct. I don't know what you're talking about. Who's
She said
coming in?
50,000. That's fine.
No, it's 500,000.
Of course, that's what I thought. Maybe you made a mistake. You said.
No, she'll speak to Alon, because we only have 300,000, so she can't transfer.
Yeah, I usually call for